Welcome to another enchanting bedtime story on Sleepytime Chronicles. Tonight, we journey to the shadow-drenched realm of Eldoria, where ancient trees whisper secrets and magic lingers in the air. Close your eyes and let the soothing music guide you to a world where a hunter named Kale seeks a legendary phoenix feather. Imagine the cool night air, the scent of moss, and the rustle of leaves as Kale moves silently through the forest. Picture the gnarled trees like ancient sorcerers, hiding secrets and tales of old. As you listen, let the story of Kale and his quest for immortality lull you into a peaceful slumber. Join Kale and his companions, a peasant with a heart of gold, a jovial giant, and a mysterious guardian, as they face the perils of the Whispering Woods and forge bonds in their shared quest. Feel the warmth of the campfire, hear their stories, and let the magic of their journey fill your dreams. Good night, dear friends. May the tale of the phoenix feather bring you comfort and wonder, and may your dreams be filled with the light of stars and the promise of new adventures. Chapter 1. The Hunter's Quest. In the shadow-drenched realm of Eldoria, under a canopy of whispering leaves, the hunter Kale moved with a silence that matched the grave. The trees, gnarled like the fingers of ancient sorcerers, bent under the weight of secrets they dared not tell the sky. Kale, however, was no stranger to secrets. His life was a tapestry woven with the dark threads of whispered tales and bloodied conquests. Tonight, the forest was restless, murmuring with a new tale, one of a feather that burned with the eternal fire of a phoenix, a feather that could grant the beholder immortality. The air was thick with the scent of moss and mystery as Kale paused, a shadow among shadows, listening to the tale spun not by lips, but by the lingering magics of the world. Immortality, he whispered, the word slicing the cool air with its promise. His eyes, sharp and relentless, glinted with the kind of fierce desire that had driven empires to dust. He needed that feather, not for power, but for a chance to rewrite the dark destiny that clung to his own soul. The curse of an early death had haunted his lineage, and Kale was determined to outrun his fate. As dawn threatened the dominion of night, Kale emerged from the forest, his resolve armored in iron determination. He would gather a band of unlikely allies. Each would have their own reasons for the journey, but it was his will that would lead them to the phoenix's nest. Kale's journey first led him to the humble village of Greendale, where the sun kissed the golden fields and promised a bounty. Yet the villagers walked with the heaviness of despair. Among them moved Lyra, a peasant whose heart bore the gentle strength of the earth itself. Her village was dying, a mysterious blight creeping over the crops, and the laughter of children dimming like the fading twilight. When Cale entered Greendale, his reputation fluttered before him like a dark cloak. Mothers pulled their children closer, and old warriors eyed him with a respect born of fear. Lyra, however, saw not the hunter, but the hope he might carry. As Cale spoke of the phoenix feather, Lyra's decision was swift, her voice a determined chime against the murmur of doubts. I will join you, not for the greed of living forever, but to bring back the hope of survival to Greendale, she declared, her resolve shining clear in her eyes. As they prepared to leave, the ground shook with laughter, deep and rumbling. From behind, an ancient oak stepped Boar, a giant whose banishment had left him wandering, his jovial nature undimmed by his solitude. He had heard the tale of the phoenix from the whispering winds and sought the excitement of the quest. Count me in, little hunter, Boar boomed, clapping Cale on the back with the force that would have felled a lesser man. Where you find danger, you find stories, and I am in dire need of both. Their last companion was found under less joyful circumstances. In the dark of the night, a figure cloaked in the mysteries of the Order of Shadows approached their camp. Nyx, with eyes like polished onyx, offered her blade and her allegiance, not to Cale, but to the balance of life and death itself. The feather must not fall into the wrong hands, she intoned, her voice a whisper that seemed to blend with the night itself. I am here to ensure it does not. Together, this quartet of disparate destinies turned their faces toward the perilous, whispering woods, the first barrier on their path to the phoenix's nest. The whispering woods lay draped in an eternal twilight, its name derived from the incessant murmurs of leaves that spoke in forgotten tongues. As the companions ventured deeper, the path beneath their feet became a tapestry of moss and twisted roots, and the air grew thick with the scent of ancient earth. The woods were alive, not just with creatures, but with magic old as time, magic that knew the hearts of those who walked its shadowed paths. Cale led with a hunter's caution, his eyes scanning the gnarled branches that seemed to coil like serpents ready to strike. Lyra walked beside him, her spirit kindled by the beauty and the peril, while Boar's laughter occasionally shattered the eerie calm, his large hand brushing aside thickets as though they were mere wisps of cobweb. Nyx moved like a shadow among them, her presence a silent, watchful guardian against the unseen dangers. The forest tested them with visions born from their deepest memories and fears. ghostly figures appeared, woven from the mists, loved ones lost, enemies defeated, and moments of despair. Each vision sought to lead them astray, to ensnare their souls in a web of their own making. Cale faced the specter of his father, a stern man swallowed by the same curse that now chased Cale towards his desperate quest. Lyra saw her village overrun by darkness and decay, her people turning to her with eyes hollowed by starvation. Bor confronted his own banishment, reliving the laughter turned to scorn. And Nyx, her face ever stoic, battled the shadows of those she had slain in the name of balance. Yet they did not falter. Lyra's resolve became their anchor, her belief in their quest a beacon that led them through the illusions. Bor's booming reassurances echoed like the heartbeats of the earth, reminding them of the reality of their fellowship. Cale, with each spectral challenge, hardened his resolve. His eyes set not on the shadows of his past, but on the fiery promise of the phoenix. Nyx, ever the guardian, cut through the deception with her blades, her movements a dance that severed lies from truth. As they emerged from the whispering woods, the bonds forged in the crucible of shared visions and vulnerabilities were as tangible as the weapons they bore. They stepped into the moonlight that awaited them on the other side, not merely as travelers bound by a common goal, but as companions who had glimpsed one another's souls. As the shadows of the whispering woods receded, the quartet found themselves in a serene clearing where the sky unfurled like a dark velvet tapestry studded with shimmering stars. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and the distant murmur of the Silverstone River. Here, they decided to rest, the fatigue of their mental battles weighing even on Bor's massive shoulders. With a fire crackling cheerfully at the center of their camp, the companions settled around its warming glow. Bor took up the task of roasting a haunch of venison, his large fingers surprisingly deft at turning the spit. Lyra, her face touched by the firelight, prepared a simple but hearty broth, her hands moving with the efficiency of one who had long learned to make much out of little. Nyx, typically a solitary sentinel, chose a spot close enough to share in the warmth, yet far enough to survey the perimeter with her keen eyes. Cale, however, seemed restless, his gaze often turning to the stars as if seeking answers in their cold light. It was under this night sky that Cale's story unfolded, drawn out by the gentle probing of Lyra. With the stars as his witnesses, he spoke of his lineage, cursed to die at the prime of life, a relentless shadow that had claimed his forebears through generations. His quest for the phoenix feather was born from a desperation not just to escape death, but to live a life unshadowed by the fear of premature end. I seek not just to survive, but to live, Kel confessed, his voice a blend of defiance and despair. The revelation softened the edges of his rugged demeanor, showing a vulnerability rarely allowed in the light of day. Lyra listened, her heart aching with empathy, her own fears for her village mirroring Kale's personal dread. She spoke of Greendale, of the laughter that had grown silent, and the fields that had turned barren, her words painting a portrait of a community on the brink of extinction. Bor, in his turn, shared tales of his homeland beyond the great mountains, from where he had been exiled for defying traditions too archaic to remain unchallenged. His laughter, though still hearty, carried a tinge of sorrow when he recounted the celebrations he missed, the camaraderie of his kinfolk he longed for. And Nyx, urged by the openness around her, reluctantly offered glimpses into her life. A life dedicated to maintaining the balance between light and dark, a path fraught with solitude and sacrifice. Each life I've taken haunts me, not because I fear death, but because I yearn to understand it, she murmured, her eyes reflecting the flicker of flames and the depth of her inner turmoil. The night deepened around their shared confidences, the fire's glow casting dancing shadows that seemed to embrace them in its warmth. Their stories, different threads of the same tapestry, wove them closer, knitting respect and understanding where suspicion and solitude had once lain. As they settled into their makeshift beds, the stars overhead watched silently, timeless witnesses to the mortal fears and hopes below. The morning found the companions quieter than usual, their thoughts lingering on the truths shared under the starlit sky. They broke camp with a newfound camaraderie, the tasks shared silently, but with a synchrony born of mutual understanding and respect. The Silverstone River was their next challenge, its name a whisper among the locals, spoken with a mix of reverence and dread. As they approached, the river revealed itself, a wide swath of churning water that glittered like molten silver under the rising sun. The roar of the rushing water filled the air, drowning out the quieter sounds of the forest. The river's beauty was undeniable, but so was its peril. It cut through the land with fierce determination, its currents strong and treacherous. Kale surveyed the river, his eyes narrowing as he assessed their options. We need to cross here. The river widens further down, and the currents will only grow stronger, he said, his voice carrying over the tumultuous water. His gaze settled on a series of large stones that jutted above the rushing water, suggesting a possible path across. Lyra, pulling from the wisdom of her farming life, suggested tying themselves together with a rope. If one falls, the others can hold steady. We are stronger together, she proposed, her voice steady despite the obvious danger. Boar nodded in agreement, his large hands testing the strength of the rope they had. Let's do it then. I'll lead. If I can keep my balance, I'll steady the rest of you as well. Nyx, ever the guardian, moved to take the rear, her eyes constantly scanning for the less visible threats that might lurk near such a vital crossing. Be watchful, she cautioned, her voice low. Places of power like this often attract creatures of magic. With Boar stepping cautiously onto the first stone, the others followed, tethered by the rope and their trust in each other. Each step was a test of balance and nerve. The stones, slick with the spray of the river, offered a precarious foothold. The cold water splashed against their legs, its icy grip a stark reminder of the risk they shared. Halfway across, a sudden surge in the river's flow caused Lyra to slip. Her cry was swallowed by the roar of the water, but the tension in the rope and Boar's quick reaction kept her from being swept away. Heart pounding, she found her footing again. Her grateful glance towards Boar met with a reassuring grin. Can't lose you, little one. Not here, not now, Boar shouted back, his voice booming over the tumult. Steadily, they continued, each step bringing them closer to the opposite bank. The ordeal seemed to stretch time, the river demanding acknowledgement of its might and majesty. Finally, as they stepped onto the solid ground on the other side, each felt the weight of the river's challenge lift from their shoulders. They had faced the river not as individuals, but as a unified force, each member playing a crucial role in their collective survival. Nyx was the last to climb onto the bank, her relief visible only in the slight relaxation of her shoulders. We are bound by more than rope now, she observed quietly, the others nodding in agreement. The crossing of the Silverstone River had been their first true test as a team. They had emerged not only successful, but strengthened. The bonds of trust and mutual reliance deepened by the shared peril. With the river behind them, they turned their gaze forward to the challenges that awaited on the path to the Phoenix's nest. Chapter 2: The Path of Trials. After surmounting the challenge of the Silverstone River, the companions ventured deeper into the heart of a realm where the air thickened with enchantment. As they approached the border of the Phoenix's domain, the landscape shifted, the forest giving way to towering cliffs that were carved with ancient runes, shimmering faintly with residual magic. At the cliff's base, nestled between two great stone sentinels, stood the gates of dawn, an archway of iridescent stone that marked the threshold to the Phoenix's sacred grounds. As the group approached, the air grew heavy, charged with a palpable sense of anticipation. From the shimmering gateway stepped forth a figure clad in armor that gleamed like the first light of dawn. This was the guardian of the gates, a spectral warrior bound by ancient magic to test the worthiness of those who sought passage. "Who approaches the gates of dawn?" the guardian's voice echoed, resonant and otherworldly, turning the air cold with its solemnity. Kale stepped forward, his voice firm. "We seek the Phoenix's feather, not for power or greed, but to fulfill needs that weigh heavily upon our hearts." The guardian surveyed them, its gaze piercing as the morning star. "Each of you must face your own trial, a reflection of your fears and desires. Only by overcoming these can you pass." With a sweep of its arm, the gates shimmered more brightly, and one by one, the companions were enveloped in a curtain of light, disappearing from each other's sight. Kale found himself alone, standing atop a crumbling tower besieged by storms. His fear of falling not from heights, but from grace, the legacy of his cursed bloodline threatening to consume him. Lyra stood in a dying field, the soil turning to dust beneath her feet, symbolizing her fear of failing her people, her village doomed to wither unless she could bring back hope. Bor faced a giant rival in an arena of his kin, his trial not of strength, but of acceptance, the laughter of his family turning into jeers, challenging his banishment and his worth. Nyx was thrust into a shadowy realm, where every shadow whispered secrets of death she had dealt, her trial to reconcile her duty with her growing dread of what her life's work had wrought upon her soul. One by one, they faced their fears. Kale learned that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the will to rise each time he fell. Lyra nurtured a single seed in her dream of desolation, her determination turning the dust to fertile ground, reaffirming her belief in renewal and growth. Bor's laughter, genuine and warm, finally won over the jeers. His strength not in his fists, but in his heart. His acceptance of himself as the true victory. And Nyx, embracing each shadow, learned to accept the balance of life and death. Her role not as a harbinger of end, but as a keeper of necessary cycles. As each emerged from their trial, they found themselves once again at the gates of dawn, changed more by their journey within than by any path they had walked before. The guardian, now a benign presence, nodded solemnly. "The gates recognize your worthiness," it declared, stepping aside. The gates of dawn swung open silently, revealing a path that led deeper into realms of swirling mists and mysteries yet to unfold. Beyond the gates of dawn lay the meadow of mists, a vast expanse where the ground seemed to breathe, and the air was thick with swirling fog. Here, visibility was a treasured rarity, and the landscape changed with the whims of the wind. The mists whispered secrets of old, their voices a soft caress against the skin, enticing the wanderer deeper into their embrace. As the companions stepped into the meadow, the ground underfoot was soft, the grass wet with dew. The world around them was a canvas of grays and silvers, painted with the brush of the unseen artist, the mist itself. Lyra, who had spent her life reading the subtle cues of nature, took the lead. Her eyes, adept at spotting the slightest shift in the environment, guided them through the deceptive tranquility. "Stay close," she advised, her voice barely louder than the mist's murmur. "The meadow is never the same. It shifts as we move. We must trust not just our eyes, but our instincts." As they ventured further, shapes loomed and faded within the fog. Shadows of creatures that might once have roamed these lands, or perhaps were just illusions crafted by the mist. Boar, with his height, occasionally caught glimpses of the path ahead, his deep voice guiding them back whenever the mists sought to lead them astray. Nyx, her senses honed in the shadows, remained alert to the subtler signs of danger. Her ears picked up the faint rustling not of leaves, but of ethereal beings that skirted their periphery, curious about the intruders in their realm. It was during one such moment, when the mist thickened around them like a woolen blanket, that a true test of their trust emerged. Kale, stepping forward, suddenly found the ground vanishing beneath his feet. With a startled shout, he began to fall, but the quick reactions of his companions, their hands grasping, pulling, saved him from a plunge into an unseen chasm. Panting, back on solid ground, thanks to the combined strength of his comrades, Kale looked at each of them with a newfound respect. "Thank you," he breathed, his usual self-reliance softened by gratitude. "This meadow tests more than our direction. It tests our reliance on each other." Together, they continued, the landscape gradually sloping upwards. As they ascended, the mists began to thin, revealing glimpses of the world beyond, a world bathed in the gentle light of a setting sun, promising clarity and the hope of reaching the phoenix's nest. By the time they reached the edge of the meadow of mists, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving a lingering glow that painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. The meadow had taught them the value of mutual trust and the strength of shared burdens. As they camped at the meadow's edge, looking back at the sea of fog they had traversed, each felt a silent, profound relief mixed with anticipation for the challenges ahead. The dawn of the next day rose with a light breeze that carried the laughter of distant giants. As the companions broke camp, Boar's steps seemed to quicken with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. They were approaching the Valley of Echoes, known among giants as a place of testing, where strength was measured not just by brawn, but by the spirit of joy one could bring to the trials. As the valley opened before them, lined with towering statues of ancient giant heroes, Boar's demeanor shifted from jovial to somber. This is the land of my fathers, and the challenge I face today is not just mine, but a right of return, he explained, his voice echoing slightly in the vast open space. The companions entered the valley, the ground vibrating with the rhythmic thumping of giant drums. Emerging from the shadows of the towering rock faces were giants of various tribes, their eyes fixed on Boar with a mix of curiosity and challenge. A giant elder stepped forward, his hair white as the mountain peaks, and his voice booming like thunder. Boar, son of the northern hills, you have returned. To reclaim your place among us, you must best the champion of laughter in a duel of wit and mirth. Boar nodded, turning to his friends with a grin. Stand back and prepare for a spectacle, he winked, stepping into the center of a natural amphitheater formed by the valley's walls. The challenge was unlike any typical trial of strength. The champion of laughter, a giantess named Frelda, approached with a twinkle in her eye. The duel began with each contestant telling tales, their stories filled with clever twists and outrageous exaggerations. Laughter rolled across the valley like thunder, the echoes returning as if the very mountains laughed with them. Boar spun a tale of a mischievous fox that tried to outsmart the moon, while Frelda recounted the adventures of a troll who wore boots but forgot his pants. The air was thick with joviality, and even Kale, Lyra, and Nyx found themselves swept up in the mirth. As the duel drew to a close, it was clear that Boar's laughter was genuine and infectious, his stories a reflection of his love for life and his people. Frelda conceded with a hearty laugh, embracing Boar in a gesture of goodwill. You have not only returned, but reminded us of the joy we must never lose, the elder declared, his voice warm. Welcome back, Boar of the Northern Hills. The trial had not only reinstated Boar into his tribe, but also reinforced the unity of the group. As they left the Valley of Echoes, the laughter of giants behind them. Each companion felt lighter, their spirits buoyed by the joy of their friend's victory. That night, under the stars, their camp was filled with echoes of laughter from the day's challenge. The memory of it, a light that would guide them through darker times. Leaving the valley of echoes with spirits lifted, the companions journeyed towards a region shrouded in the legends of old, the labyrinth of lore. It was said that within this labyrinth, walls inscribed with ancient runes held the wisdom of the ages, and only those who could unravel the riddles etched in stone would find the path to the phoenix's nest. As they entered the labyrinth, the air grew cool and the light dimmed, filtered through the dense canopy overhead. The path forked and twisted, leading them deeper into a maze of stone and moss. The walls were covered in runes, glowing with a soft luminescence, each symbol pulsating as if breathing with the life of long-forgotten spells. Nyx, whose life in the Order of Shadows had versed her in many ancient languages, stepped forward. Her fingers traced the cool stone, feeling the hum of magic under her touch. These runes are not just markers. They tell a story, she murmured, her voice echoing slightly in the still air. Kale, Lyra, and Boar gathered around as Nyx translated the symbols. This passage speaks of the cycle of life and death, of the phoenix's role in maintaining the balance of nature. Each riddle we solve will lead us closer to understanding the true essence of the feather we seek. The first riddle was a series of symbols that depicted the sun, the moon, and a star. What shines by day reflects by night and is unseen but felt. Nyx read aloud. After a moment of contemplative silence, Lyra spoke, her voice tentative. Could it be the wind? It touches all, sun, moon, and stars, but remains invisible and ever-present. Nyx pressed a hand against the stone where the wind symbol was carved, and the wall slid away with a grinding sound, opening a new path in the labyrinth. Encouraged, they continued, facing several more riddles, each a deeper probe into the mysteries of life, death, and rebirth. One riddle showed a leaf, a snowflake, and a drop of water. Changes form, yet remains itself. What am I? Nyx read. Boar chuckled, the answer coming to him as naturally as breathing. Water, of course. From rain to river, to ice and snow, it's always water, no matter the shape. With each correct answer, the labyrinth's pathways revealed themselves, the companions delving deeper into both the physical and philosophical mazes. The final riddle was a solitary rune that Nyx deciphered with a soft gasp of awe. To rise anew, one must first fall. What am I? The phoenix itself? Kale answered, a note of understanding in his voice. It was the essence of their entire quest, the cycle of the phoenix, a creature both living and reborn in fire, mirroring the eternal loop of endings and beginnings. With the solving of the last riddle, the central chamber of the labyrinth opened before them, bathed in a light that felt both ancient and welcoming. They had passed through the riddle of the runes, closer now, not only to their goal, but to the truths behind the existence of such mythical beings. Emerging from the labyrinth's depths, the companions found themselves in a clearing circumscribed by ancient oaks whose branches seemed to cradle the stars. At the clearing's center, a fire pit lay dormant, surrounded by stones carved with the same runes that had guided them through the maze. Here, the air was thick with the scent of pine and the promise of revelations yet to come. As night enveloped the sky, they decided to rest, their bodies weary, but spirits enlivened by the journey's trials. Boar, with practiced ease, set about rekindling the fire pit. Soon, flames danced into the night, casting a warm glow that pulled the group together, their faces illuminated by the fire's cheerful crackle. Kale, usually a solitary figure, felt a rare pull of companionship and opened the night's conversation. We've each faced our fears, unraveled ancient riddles, and walked paths no ordinary folk dare tread. Yet, here we are, bound by something stronger than the quest itself, our friendship. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the flames. In our village, we say that a shared burden lessens the load, but a shared joy makes the heart fuller. I never imagined that I'd find such joy in such unlikely company. Boar threw a hefty log onto the fire, his laughter booming as sparks flew up like tiny stars. And I'd never thought I'd fight for anything other than my own skin or a good meal. But here I am, ready to face whatever comes for all of you. Nyx, who had always been guarded, her emotions cloaked as securely as her blades, allowed a rare smile to cross her lips. In the Order, we are taught that balance is not only about light and shadow, but also about giving and receiving. I've always been ready to stand in defense, but now I find strength in standing together. The conversation deepened as the night grew old, each sharing tales of their homes and dreams, fears and hopes. The fire's warmth became a beacon, drawing out truths and forging bonds that no trial could break. Kael, feeling the weight of leadership ease slightly, shared his deeper thoughts. This quest began as a chase for immortality, a way to escape my fate. But I've come to learn that perhaps true immortality lies in the legacy we leave, the lives we touch. Lyra, moved by Kael's words, added, and maybe the real magic of the Phoenix isn't in living forever, but in rising anew from the ashes of despair, in being reborn through the trials we overcome. As the fire dwindled to embers, the group sat in contemplative silence, each pondering the journey's lessons. They had started as strangers, bound by a common goal, but had grown into a family of sorts, their destinies intertwined by the paths they had chosen together. As they settled into their cloaks for sleep, the fire's last light flickering in the cool night air, they knew the hardest part of their journey still lay ahead. Chapter 3: The Nest of Eternity. With the first light of dawn casting golden hues across the landscape, the companions set out for the final leg of their journey, the ascent to the Phoenix's nest, situated at the peak of the Celestial Mount, a place where the heavens touched the earth. The path up the mountain was steep and fraught with peril, a physical manifestation of the challenges they had faced and overcome together. As they climbed, the air grew thinner, and the vegetation shifted from lush greenery to sparse, wind-swept brush. The mountain path wound through jagged rocks and along precipitous ledges, where a single misstep could mean a fall into the abyss. Boar, with his great strength, often took the lead, securing ropes and aiding his smaller companions over the toughest parts of the ascent. Lyra, ever observant, pointed out small, hardy flowers that clung to life in the most inhospitable places, a testament to nature's resilience. Even here, life finds a way, she mused, her words a quiet echo among the rocks. Nyx, usually so composed, showed signs of weariness, her breaths coming in sharp gasps as they climbed higher. Yet, her determination did not waver, her dark eyes fixed on the path ahead. Kale, noticing her struggle, moved to support her, offering a shoulder when the climb grew particularly grueling. "Thank you," Nyx managed through gritted teeth, a small nod acknowledging Kale's unspoken promise of camaraderie and support. The journey up the Celestial Mount was not just a test of physical endurance, but a reflection of their inner strength. Each step upwards, mirroring the personal growth they had each undergone. As they neared the summit, the clouds began to envelop them, a soft, cool embrace that isolated them from the world below. It was as if they were walking in a realm of dreams, where only the mountain, the sky, and their shared resolve existed. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of climbing, they reached the summit. Before them lay the Phoenix's nest, a sprawling structure of twigs and branches, ablaze with a gentle fire that did not consume, but rather sustained and warmed. And there, in the heart of the flames, sat the Phoenix itself, a magnificent creature with feathers that shimmered with the hues of the setting sun, its eyes ancient and wise. The sight of the phoenix struck them silent, a mix of awe and reverence washing over them. This was the creature of legend, the embodiment of life, death, and rebirth. Here, at the peak of the world, they felt the weight of their journey and the significance of their quest settle upon them. Standing before the phoenix, shimmered with the hues of the setting sun, its eyes ancient and wise. The sight of the phoenix struck them silent, a mix of awe and reverence washing over them. This was the creature of legend, the embodiment of life, death, and rebirth. Here, at the peak of the world, they felt the weight of their journey and the significance of their quest settle upon them. Standing before the phoenix, the companions found themselves speechless, caught in the gravity of the moment. The phoenix, with its eyes like molten gold, regarded them with an intelligence that transcended the ages. Its plumage, a tapestry of fiery colors, seemed to flicker with the flames that surrounded its nest. Yet it remained unscathed by the fire it called home. The air around the nest was warm, charged with the primal energy that spoke of creation and destruction intertwined. The phoenix's gaze settled on each of them in turn, its head tilting slightly as if to decipher their deepest intentions. Finally, it spoke, its voice a melodious sound that resonated within their very souls. You have journeyed far and faced trials many would flee. Speak now your desires, for each heart's wish is known to me. Kyle, stepping forward with a reverence he'd never known himself capable of, voiced the burden he had carried across the realms. Great Phoenix, I seek your feather, not for the endless days it promises, but for a chance to live free from the curse that haunts my lineage. I wish to break the cycle of early death that has plagued my family. Lyra followed, her voice clear and humble. I seek healing, mighty Phoenix, not for myself, but for my village, which suffers under a blight we cannot cure. Your feather, a symbol of renewal, could bring back the life that once thrived in our fields and homes. Boar's voice boomed, resonant and full of warmth. And I, noble creature, seek nothing for myself. My journey has returned me to my kin, and with it, my purpose. But for my friends, I ask that their wishes be granted, for their causes are just and true. Nyx, usually so guarded, stepped forth last. I have seen death more than most, and in your rebirth, I seek understanding. To guard the balance is my role, but to comprehend it fully, I need your insight. The phoenix listened, its gaze never wavering. After a moment that stretched like eternity, it spread its majestic wings, the light from its feathers casting patterns of gold and crimson across the mountaintop. You speak of desires pure and selfless, a rarity in the hearts of those who seek me. Before you receive what you seek, you must understand the true essence of life and rebirth. Are you prepared to see beyond the veil of mortality? With a unanimous nod, the companions affirmed their readiness, each set on understanding the deeper truths the phoenix might reveal. The creature's eyes glowed brighter as it prepared to bestow upon them not just the gifts they sought, but the wisdom necessary to wield such power responsibly. The phoenix's voice, imbued with the warmth of 1,000 sunsets, filled the air once more. To understand the feather's power, you must first witness the dance of creation and destruction, the eternal cycle of life and death. As it spoke, the flames around its nest grew taller and brighter, weaving into a tapestry of fire that danced in the air. The phoenix itself became the center of this fiery maelstrom, its body dissolving into the flames, only to reemerge, reborn and radiant, its feathers aglow with new life. Kale, Lyra, Boar, and Nyx watched, transfixed as the phoenix moved through the flames. Its dance was a mesmerizing blend of flight and flame, each beat of its wings scattering sparks that painted the sky with fleeting stars. The dance was not just a spectacle, but a profound expression of the phoenix's essence. Its life, a continuous loop of fiery end and brilliant rebirth. This is the cycle of all life, though not as vivid or swift, the phoenix explained, its voice echoing with the crackle of fire. Each end is merely a beginning in another guise. What you perceive as death is but a pause before the renewal, a necessary darkness before the dawn. Moved by the spectacle and the words, Kale felt a shift within himself. The fear of death, which had driven him so fiercely, began to wane, replaced by an understanding of life's natural rhythms. He saw his family's curse not as a specter to flee, but as part of a larger cycle, one that he could perhaps accept, if not yet fully understand. Lyra's thoughts turned to her village. The blight that seemed so final now took on a different shade. Perhaps, like the phoenix, her land needed to endure its plight to emerge stronger, reborn with the help of the feather's power. Boar, ever the heart of their group, found joy in the renewal. His laughter, which had often lifted their spirits, now took on a new timbre, one of deep, resonating acceptance of life's ebb and flow. Nyx, whose life had been shadowed by death, watched the phoenix's rebirth with a solemn intensity. Here was the embodiment of her own role, a guardian not just of death's necessity, but of the life that inevitably followed. Her duty, she realized, was not just to end, but to protect the balance, ensuring that each ending could lead to a new beginning. As the dance concluded, the flames receded, leaving the phoenix once more settled within its nest, its eyes gentle upon the group. The feather you seek holds the power of this understanding, the rebirth from ashes, the light from darkness. But it comes at a cost, as all powerful gifts do. The companions stood together, closer now in their shared epiphany, ready to face whatever price the phoenix would ask of them. Their journey had brought them to this revelation, and each felt a profound readiness to accept the feather's price, armed with the knowledge that their quest was about far more than a mere escape from death or blight. In the quiet that followed the phoenix's dance, the air seemed thick with the weight of impending choices. The phoenix's eyes, wise and deep as ancient wells, fixed on each of them in turn, its gaze piercing yet not unkind. The feather's power is great, and with great power comes a great cost, the phoenix began, its voice a soft murmur against the cool mountain air. To wield the essence of life and rebirth, one must offer something of equivalent value, something that ties you to your current form of existence. Kale's heart tightened, the fear he had subdued flaring anew. He stepped forward, his resolve hardening. I am prepared to give up my claim to my family's lands and titles, the roots of my curse, but also my legacy. Let my life be unbound by the chains of my ancestors. The phoenix nodded solemnly, a spark igniting in its eyes. A significant sacrifice, reflecting the depth of your desire for change. Lyra, with a gentle firmness in her stance, spoke next. I offer the seeds of the golden orchid, exclusive to our village. Planting them here, I forsake their healing powers from my people, trusting that the feather will provide a greater cure. For ever the giant with a booming voice and a gentle heart took a deep breath. My laughter has been my strength and shield. I offer a portion of it. Let me feel the sorrows more deeply, that I may better understand and comfort others. Nyx, who had always shielded her emotions, now laid them bare. I offer my shadows, the hidden parts of my soul where I keep my fears and regrets. Let them be illuminated to not only serve as a guardian of death, but to celebrate the life that follows. The phoenix considered each offer, its eyes reflecting the flames that flickered gently in its nest. These are true sacrifices, born from understanding and acceptance. They are accepted. With a graceful motion, the phoenix plucked a single feather from its plumage. The feather glowed with a light that seemed to pulse with life itself, its colors shifting and shimmering. "Take this," the phoenix said, as it offered the feather to Kale, who stood as the group's leader. "With it, carry the responsibility to uphold the balance of life and death, to cherish every moment of existence, and to remember the cycle continues always, with or without you." As Kale took the feather, a warmth spread through his hands, not just a physical warmth, but an emotional one, filling him with an indescribable sense of peace and purpose. The sacrifices made by each of them seemed not just a loss, but a transformation, a rebirth of their very beings. With the phoenix's feathers secured and their sacrifices accepted, the companions began their descent from the celestial mount, their hearts heavy with the weight of their choices, yet lightened by the promise of new beginnings. The journey back to the realm of mortals was a mirror of their ascent. But where there had been struggle and uncertainty, there was now a serene confidence and a deepened understanding of their places in the world. As they neared the base of the mountain, the landscape once again shifted from the sparse, rocky heights to the lush vibrancy of the forest. The air was rich with the sounds of life, birds singing, rivers babbling, and the wind whispering through the trees. Each step homeward was taken with a renewed appreciation for the life that thrummed around them. Kale, holding the phoenix's feather close, felt the pulse of its power with every heartbeat. His sacrifice had freed him from the haunting dread of his family's curse, allowing him to view his future as a canvas yet to be painted. With this new lease on life, he planned not only to explore the vast possibilities of existence, but also to use the feather's power to aid those cursed by fate, as he had been. Lyra, her spirit bolstered by the feather's promise, hurried back to her village, eager to use its powers to cure the blight that had withered her home. As she arrived, the villagers gathered, wary yet hopeful, having seen many false dawns. But when Lyra unveiled the feather and the golden light washed over the fields, the crops began to stir, the leaves unfurling, and the flowers blooming with a vigor that had been lost to memory. The village rejoiced, their faith in Lyra and the legends of the phoenix renewed. Boar, though he had offered a part of his laughter, found that his joy was not diminished, but deepened. The sorrow he now shared made his happiness more profound, his connections with others more heartfelt. He returned to his giant kin, not just as a warrior, but as a sage, his tales now woven with the wisdom of his experiences, bringing laughter and learning in equal measure. Nyx, once a solitary figure shadowed by her duties, found her return to the order of shadows changed. Illuminated by her sacrifices, she taught the newer guardians the value of understanding the cycles they influenced, encouraging a reverence for life as much as a respect for death. Together, they returned to the world, changed not only in spirit, but in purpose. Their adventures had taught them the interconnectedness of all life, the importance of balance, and the truth that every ending was merely the beginning of something new. As they finally parted ways, their farewell was not one of sadness, but of celebration, a recognition that their paths would cross again in the cycle of life. With the phoenix feather, they carried the essence of rebirth, renewal, and eternal connection, not just among themselves, but with the world at large. And so, as the twilight drew its curtain across the sky, each of them walked their separate paths, enriched by the journey, empowered by sacrifice, and eternally linked by the threads of destiny woven in the nest of eternity.